Hello and welcome back to Serious About Rugby League's podcast. I am once again joined with Connor. Connor's back after a week break. How are you doing, mate?
I'm alright, thanks. How are you?
You're not too bad. I'm surviving. Let's go with surviving after recent results. We'll jump straight into it as always. And there's a Thursday night game that's happening tonight in the town that we are sat in. The Giants are taking on St Helens.
Yeah, hopefully a good game. Huddersfield coming off the back of a win against Wigan. Saints obviously strong this year, but everyone's beating everyone this year. So I could easily see Huddersfield snatching a win.
I think for myself, I would disagree with you. I think the Giants, obviously, they had a fantastic result against Wigan last week for them, and that was important for them to get off the mark. I think they're going to come up against a team that won't be as forgiving as Wigan were last week, and I think St Helens by 30, 40 points, obviously. No offence to Giants fans that might be listening. Obviously, we've got a good affiliation with Giants in the community. Huddersfield is it's a very good place to live, but I don't think they're good enough to be playing against these top teams right now. I think the thing that Wigan were doing last week, where they were turning over the ball 30, 40 metres out from the Huddersfield line. They couldn't capitalise on errors that Huddersfield were making near their own line. St Helens won't be as forgiving in that sense. They've got too many top class players that will punish Giants if they had that fruitless with the ball.
I think that's the way most people probably look at it. This should be an easy St Helens win, but like I say, with teams beating everyone this season, anyone can have an off day, even St Helens.
It's true, but I think you look at the recent results. Obviously, we'll go on to St Helens and talk about them. And they had a game against London last week and kept the score to 0, which is important as anything, and proves that they are defensively as strong as they are offensively. And that's something that Justin Holbrook's obviously looked at, and it's been a proving point for the entire season as they still remain unbeaten at the top of the table.
Yeah, they look really strong. They're my favourites to win the whole competition, I think, so far. From what we've seen anyway from the early stages, it's too early to call it, but from what the other teams have started, like compared to how Saints have started, Saints are strong favourites for me.
I wouldn't disagree, and I think that's where the Giants will be scuppered a bit tonight. I think it will come for the Giants. I think there's areas, but it just seems like winter rugby. We always talk about winter rugby affecting the Catalan Dragons, but for the last 2 or 3 years, it's been affecting the Giants just as much, and they've only really been able to come strong in the latter parts of the season. And I think that'll be another case tonight where St Helens will prove their class.
Well, thankfully the wind's gone down a bit from earlier in the week, and there'd be a bit better conditions for a good rugby game tonight, which actually would probably favour St Helens more than it would Huddersfield. I think Huddersfield would have loved a bit of rain, a bit of wind to
really put the
throw some randomness into the mix and hopefully capitalise on some St Helens mistakes. But we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to it. It should be a good game.
I'll call it now. I don't think there'll be many St Helens mistakes, but we do wait and see. We'll move on to the Friday night as well. Friday night there's 3 games taking place, and the televised game is obviously the big rivalry, the grand final rematch, as it was. Warrington will host Wigan, and let's start off by talking about Warrington, because Warrington are obviously a lot of people's favourites as well as St Helens, and they took on a very, very important opponent last weekend after a shock loss away at Catalan. Obviously, they lost 23-22 at Catalan, and sort of a gritty game. You could claim that they sort of brought it upon themselves, but Catalan were very, very good. They then had to play against title contenders Castleford at home, and it was very important they got those 2 points just to cement the fact that they weren't falling away from the pace, and they were very, very dominant against a good Castleford side.
Castleford, another team that looked like they might be up there, but Warrington proved far too good for them on the night. I think this one's a lot easier to call for me, even though you would think the calibre of the teams would suggest otherwise. I think Warrington win tonight by at least 20 points.
Tomorrow,
sorry.
I wouldn't disagree with you. The thing is, I'll be there. I'll be amongst the Wigan fans. I'll be having a good time. I don't see us providing the kind of entertainment that we've been able to go to Warrington and enjoy over the last few years. I think there's a real problem at Wigan, and I don't think it's as much to do with everyone saying that Lamb isn't good enough, or this person isn't good enough, or that person isn't good enough. There's a lot of blaming going on at the minute, and I suppose when you're a top team with a lot of honours, there's going to be blame when these things like this happen. My blame doesn't go too far at this stage. I think Adrian Lamb's trying to implement a style of play that Super League's not used to playing, and a lot of these players won't have played before. With a lot of inside balls and a lot of short balls hitting the second rowers coming on the line, is something that made Australia very, very successful, and something that makes the NRL very, very difficult to play in. But these players have to be executed at a speed and a level that allows the breakdowns in play to work, and right now we're not performing at that level.
It'll be interesting to see how George Williams copes. Obviously, there's a bit of pressure on his head now. Where it's been not announced, but it's in the works, isn't it?
There's a massive rumour, and obviously Morley has come out and said that it's a done deal. Similar happened last year with John Bateman, where it was a done deal, but it wasn't a done deal. According to Canberra, it wasn't a done deal. And then 6 months later, Canberra came out and said, we said it wasn't a done deal because we wanted to give John Bateman and Wigan the time to announce it to the fans before we stepped in and announced the sign. I feel like something similar might be happening right now. I feel like George Williams might as well be an NRL player. And if anything, as a fan's point of view, look, obviously Williams has the potential to be a top-class player, but he's not performing at the Wigan club. And if it's partly to do with the fact that he's having to keep this secret, why not just announce to the fans? I don't think the fans would be shocked. I don't think the fans would be upset, as long as he continues to play for Wigan the best he possibly can until the day he leaves. And that's all we ever ask. I think holding it up in the air, assuming that it's being held up in the air, and it's not actually just all a big fabrication, assuming it's being held in the air, I think it just needs to be announced at this point.
Yeah, I think that's best for his teammates as well. The uncertainty is also not going to help. Sama and Jake Sharrock's both in the squad for tomorrow, which hopefully...
And no Sam Powell.
No Sam Powell, but you would hope Jake Sharrock's long absence. I think his last game was 2017.
I think... no, he played for Salford. He was on loan at Salford.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, last game for Wigan was 2017.
Last game for Wigan was a while ago, yeah. I think... Wigan were going to struggle anyway. Wigan could have had the start in 17, and Wigan were going to struggle. The structures aren't hitting the top notches yet, and Warrington are obviously a top class outfit. Wigan were going to struggle in this game no matter what. They would have to have shown some serious character. The fact that obviously Manfredi's got a concussion protocol, he can't play. Marshall's injured. Davies is having to come back in. We've not got a spare winger because Burgess is also out. Now we've got Sam Powell injured as well, so our starting number 9's gone. There's a lot of areas where there's real uncertainty. Obviously, George Williams is having these problems with the connections to the NRL. With those little problems, little sort of irritating areas that are taking place, it's made the job 10 times harder for this Wigan team to go out and perform.
And Warrington's not the team you want at this stage as well. If you've got injuries, you'd hope for an easier game, maybe a game at home.
We say easier, obviously there's no disrespect, but you want a home game against a team like Wakefield or Hull KR, somebody that it's going to be a battle, but it's winnable. Going away to Warrington, it's going to be a real test of character to see what these lads can do. And if they do come away with a win, then that might be the kickstart of the season that we're going to need.
Yeah.
Also on the Friday night, there's Leeds Rhinos, second bottom. We spoke about bottom. We spoke about third bottom. Let's talk about second bottom. We'll go to Leeds Rhinos, who were at home against London. Now we spoke about London a few times, and we spoke about London. Obviously, Wigan had to go to London to make it slightly different. But we spoke about how Wigan needed to win that game and should have won that game. Now let's talk about Leeds. They need to win this game at home. It's the second game in front of the new South Stand against relegation candidates. It has to be 2 points for the Rhinos, surely.
If it's not, then I think Leeds will be the relegation candidates. Not the result we wanted at all against Wakefield last time we were at home. I went to the game. We were way off the mark. We didn't look in the game at any point, even when we were leading. It was absolutely abysmal. I'm getting to the point now where I was at first. I was like, "Oh, fairness, it's a new coach. We've got some new players. Need to adapt." Now it's getting to the point where that actually are we going to improve? Where's the space to improve?
I think Leeds have got only a minor problem. I would say the same. Obviously, don't think Werner's coming in trying to change the attacking play too much, but I would say that there's a lot of changes need to happen at Leeds before Leeds become the team that they were renowned for being. And these are just some of the things that are going to take place. I think Leeds had it hard early doors. People need to realise that Leeds have had it hard. They've had to go away to Wigan. They've had to go away to St Helens. They've had to go
away to Warrington.
Go away to Warrington. And even the home game against Wakefield, it's a tough game. It's not a game that like you're excited to play in. Wakefield are a team that's been well coached for a number of years by Chris Chester, and Wakefield will never give in. They'll never give you an easy game.
No, they love it. They love a trip to Leeds to Wakefield, and I don't want to take anything away from them because I think they were absolutely cracking on the night. I was actually stood with the Wakefield fans. There's a few problems in the south stand, which is not what you want on the opening night, but so I was ended up having to sit stand with the Wakefield fans, and they were loving it, and because the style of rugby they were playing was absolutely electric.
Yeah, I think. Well, I always talk about Jacob Miller. People that have been listening to the podcast in the last couple of years, he's my favourite halfback in the league. I think he just lit up the show as he's so capable of doing.
I think Leeds could do with a player like that. That's one thing, I don't know if Richie Myler's good enough to play for Leeds. I don't think Richie Myler's a good enough halfback to have to lead a team like Leeds and to create the attacking plays. They need the players they brought in. Good. I've liked Merrin, even though apparently he's unsettled and wants to go home. Conrad Herrell looks like a right signing. Very, very impressed. First, I wasn't so sure, but I think he did take a knock in the first game. But since then, he just looks better and better.
As for from the London point of view, obviously they've got 4 points on the board. They've beat the champions. They've beat Wakefield, who obviously Leeds didn't manage to beat. But both of those games were at home and were in tight contests where maybe the other team didn't perform to the best. How important is it for London to start getting some away form?
I think the important thing, if London wanted to stay up, was going to be their home form, and they'll be glad that they've managed to get some good wins at home already. But they've not had easy away games either. I don't see them picking up many away wins, but I don't think they'll need to.
Yeah, and obviously going away to St Helens last week wasn't an easy away game. Like you couldn't have been going anywhere harder, to be honest, at this stage in the season. But fair play. Like I said, we said on the first podcast, if London get 4 wins out the first 8, they're doing something right, and they're not far away. So they're doing something right.
I think 7 or 8 home wins for London will keep them up regardless. I don't think they need to worry too much about the away form.
The thing with London is, if they get this one big away win, that is it for me. That is their season sorted. And if they go to Leeds and win, then that might be it. Also on the Friday night, we've got a bit of a Yorkshire derby going on. Hull FC take on Wakefield at the KCOM. Hull FC have turned it round all of a sudden. Now, you were constant in reminding me about the 13 losses in a row, which, as I said at the start of the season, I thought was an absolute joke. The fact that people were still bringing it up was a joke. They went to Wigan, they won. Now they're on the back of 3 wins. All of a sudden, Hull FC could be in the top 5 again.
Yeah, looked like a really good team. I'm one of those that was really giving them stick at the start of the season because they just looked off the pace. In a big derby against Hull KR, the opening weekend, you want to give your fans something to look forward to for the season, and they didn't. But since then, they've turned it around, like you say. Probably should easily be making the playoffs, I think, with the team they've got, with the players they've got, if they keep playing as well as they're playing.
Yeah, I don't see why they couldn't win. Obviously, they absolutely annihilated Leeds last week, and all of a sudden, like, they beat the champions. They beat the champions from the season before. All of a sudden, they couldn't. Why can't they beat anybody else? I think they've got Wakefield at home this week. Although Wakefield are a top team, I don't see why they shouldn't win this game either.
I think Wakefield, from what I saw when they played Leeds, Wakefield could beat any team in the league as well. I think the league, that's one thing we can say, is the league is going to be a lot closer this year than perhaps it has been before, where there's maybe only 1 or 2 teams in it. I think whilst I think Saints will go on to win the competition, I think that the spots behind them, there's 5 or 6 teams that could easily make those 2 to 5 positions.
Yeah, we spoke about Wakefield and obviously the class they've got in, obviously Jacob Miller, Tom Johnson, Bill Tapau, Tupu. I always say that wrong. I don't know why. Somebody wants to correct me on that, please feel free. But in terms of Hull, obviously Jake Connors out again, and he was vitally important. Obviously, in my opinion, he won the game at Wigan on his own. But Max Sneed is playing immense. Albert Kelly's back now. I said it at the start of the season, I think people are writing into the Hull injury, Hull loss streak too much. I think they're going to be a top team this year, and I can't look away from a home victory just because if it was at Wakefield, it's a different conversation. I think because it being at Hull, that might just carry them over the line.
Well, we know Wakefield can travel. Obviously, they had a great performance against Leeds, and whilst when they travelled to London, it was the opposite. I think it'll be a closer game. I think that's the one I'd personally picked for the Thursday night telly game, but I'm not in charge at Sky.
Well, you've got to get every team on TV, and at the minute you can't look away from watching Huddersfield anyway. Right, let's move on to the Sunday. There's another game on TV. It's been quite good to see the amount of rugby league on the TV recently, and I'm really, really enjoying watching all the games. Obviously, the NRL's just started as well, so we've got some down under games. Really looking forward to watching Canberra, but we'll get on to that. Sunday, the 17th of March, this Sunday coming, we've got OKR versus Catalans, which is a bit of an interesting one because obviously Hull KR have sort of come good a little bit. They got a massive result last week against Wakefield. Obviously, that was always going to be a gritty game between two that are probably contesting for that 5th place spot. And OKR came away with a win away at Wakefield, which was massive. Catalans obviously got that massive win against Warrington, and fair play to them. Like, that was a fantastic result. Maybe went into the following week thinking they were on top of the world. They got a job done on by Salford, Jackson Hastings and crew.
Absolutely crazy score when I saw that. That's not something I would predict in a million years. I think I said Catalans to win quite handily, and then Salford just, I don't know what they did, turned on the
Salford
gas,
have
turned on the
proved
electric,
that when
everything.
they're on their best, they can beat anybody, and they'll continue to do that for me. They've got another hard game, which is also on the Sunday, which is away at Castleford. In terms of back-to-back away games, they're not two that you'd fancy in a row.
No, but if they can win those 2 games,
Yeah.
they'll be really showing that they're not going to be down in a relegation dogfight with the likes of Leeds and Wigan.
They're going to be up there at the top. Yeah.
They're going to be up there fighting for playoff places.
I don't disagree. I think Salford are a lot better than people make them out to be this year. Catalans, in terms of Catalans, Hull KR, I think Catalans will bounce back now. I think they will go out and prove some people wrong again. Whether they get the victory is a different story. Obviously, Hull KR are a good team. We've spoke about Hull KR experience that they've got in the lands, and it'll be an interesting game. I'm glad it's on TV. That'll be a good watch. You've got obviously a lot of experience and good signings in Hull KR taking on obviously a lot of experience and good signings in Catalan. So it'll be a very interesting game to have at this point in the season. I'm glad it's on TV.
I think Catalans really do need to bounce back. If they go 2 weeks in a row losing to teams that you would expect them to normally beat with the team they have got, then you start to wonder, like, when are Catalans going to do something in the league? I mean, obviously, Challenge Cup champions, amazing achievement, but we never see Catalans really kick on towards the playoffs. And if they're losing to teams like Salford at home, and then obviously going to Hull KR where they need to be picking up away points, and they can't do that, then they're not going to really, they're not going to do much this season because other teams are just going to turn them over.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Look, that'll be a good game. It will be a good game. And I think that is one that I wouldn't like to call at this point. To be honest, though, I wouldn't like to call the other game on the Sunday, which is Castleford-Salford. I think that could go either way. Castleford are obviously playing very well, and I'm not taking anything away from Castleford. And obviously, they were unbeaten up until they lost against Warrington. But Salford, when they turn up, can really, really play rugby, and I wouldn't write them off to beat anybody this season.
No, I've travelled to Salford a few times to watch them, and just watching Jackson Hastings play is just phenomenal. He's what a player. I think any team that come up against Salford don't have to worry about him, and he's the sort of player that can turn a game on its head if they need to. Although I would say Castleford, I think, are top 3 this season, and at home as well. Whereas Catalans can be a bit flaky. You're not always sure whether you're going to see a really astounding team or you're going to see a team that's a bit lacklustre. I don't think Castleford are like that. Castleford are a lot more consistent, and I don't think they'll lose many games at home this season at all, and I don't think they'll lose on Sunday.
We'll get onto the Championship with I think we've exhausted all points about the Super League. Massive week in the Championship. Let's just start by saying that it was an absolute explosion in the Championship. Couldn't believe what happened. Let's firstly talk about the Sky game, which obviously Toronto every week. And we spoke a lot about Toronto. A lot of people have spoke about Toronto. They're going to win this, they're going to win that. They go unbeaten, they're going to finish top, they'll get promoted. They've gone to France and they've been absolutely battered.
And I'd love to see Toronto in Super League. I'd also love to see Toulouse in Super League. But I thought Toronto, they potentially could have gone this season unbeaten. But I am actually, in a way, quite glad they lost. Because for me, the Championship is the competition this season. I really want to watch as many Championship games as possible. And I'm glad they're getting some on television. But Toulouse, I was going to say Toulouse at Toulouse, but that would have been a bit weird. So to go to Toulouse and lose in such, style, in bad style, I should say, is I'm not sure what it
if,
means
if
for
it,
them.
If it would have been an 18-16 result or a 2018, a 2-4 pointer, you'd have gone, oh, it's tough going to France, and they've come away and they've had a good trip. They just lost. They're still the favourites. The fact that they've lost by that much, you start to question whether they are the favourites in certain areas.
I think what it should do is give them a bit of a kick up the bum actually, and say maybe we're not as good as we think we are. This can happen. We can slip up, and there are other teams that are going to be hunting around to try and go up automatically. You know, there's only one spot, and everybody wants that spot.
It wasn't the only shock of the weekend, which is the amazing thing. Obviously, it's the big shock because nobody expected them to lose. But let's talk about what I consider it a shock. I don't know if other people will. Sheffield Eagles were unbeaten up until this weekend, and they've gone to Featherstone. And Featherstone obviously going to be very, very strong at home. We always knew that was going to be the case. But again, it's not just a win, it's an emphatic win. 32-14. And we were talking about Sheffield. Obviously, they've had to do a lot of rebuilding to get this team up to scratch. But they've done it. And now, all of a sudden, they look like they're going to push for promotion. But then, they're playing against Featherstone away. They're obviously a very strong team, and they're going to be up there pushing as well. But they've been turned over convincingly.
Yeah, I don't know how much of a shock it is. I know, obviously, Sheffield were unbeaten at that point, but Featherstone, like you say, are a good team full of Super League players, Super League quality players as well. I know a lot of people like to call them Featherstone Rhinos at this point because their team seems to be made up half of Leeds Rhinos' team, but I don't think that's actually that shocking. Featherstone's a hard place to go. They're a good team. They play good rugby.
I think for me it was the most shocking thing, given that if they win that game, obviously they know at this point, they know that Toronto have lost. If they win that game, they go on at the top of the league and they've got a game in hand. So the top of the league and they've got a game in hand. That's mental. Like, this is a team that last year finished, 7th, 8th? Like, nobody would have predicted this 6 months ago. But all of a sudden, Sheffield are the team to beat. And Featherstone have done it convincingly. And that it honestly does raise the question, who's going to finish in the top 5? Because at the minute, you've got Halifax, who are always there, or thereabouts. Obviously, they've been a very, very good club for a number of years. Toulouse, you expected to be there. Toronto, you expected to be there. But now you've got two other places fighting between Sheffield, York, Featherstone, Leigh, Bradford. And any one of them can make the top 5, and any one of them are capable of beating Toronto if they turn up.
Oh, yeah, easily. And witness, we've got it good to say, whilst they've got the points deduction, they're still going to go out there and they're still going to beat teams because they've still got a strong team.
Exactly, and they're on -4 already. They had a 12-point deduction. They're on -4. Like, it says a lot. I wouldn't rat them out of finishing in the top 5 if they keep winning games.
No, not at all. I mean, it's one thing that's I think will be the bane of the championship this season is there is only the one spot. I would love to have seen like a playoffs to
There's
get
a playoffs.
Yep, to get
To Super League, there's a playoffs. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
One up, one down.
No, there is one up, one down, but it's a playoff system to go up.
All right, okay, fair enough. Well, that's good then. I thought it was
Because
finished
the
top.
£1 million game still exists. That is, but it just exists between 2 championship teams.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Oh, I'm a big fan of that then. I assumed it was just top to go up, bottom to go down.
So Widnes are still well in the hunt. I mean, I said well in the hunt. They are 12 points behind the playoff places, but they're in the hunt.
Yeah, well, the thing that's going to maybe not push for the playoffs, but they are going to be beating teams in the playoffs and also pushing for the playoffs, and that's what they're coming on. Especially if they go out and beat the Torontos and beat the Sheffields, that gives space for other teams to catch up and take their place.
It does, and I just think it's this weekend's really opened this division up, and I'm really excited to see what happens from now. We'll quickly touch on the NRL. Obviously, we won't go into detail in the NRL every week because it becomes obviously. If we do sort of expand a little bit, we'll go into it in more detail. But we'll touch on it while it's the opening week. Funnily, the hilarious thing, like I find it hilarious anyway. I was doing a predictor the other day. It was completely random, so it was literally like draw out of a hat-esque predictor, and it was kind of like put 20 quid in, pick a team out. I got Melbourne Storm, and I was like, oh, it's decent. Obviously, they were on Sky this morning, and performed very well against Brisbane. I just think, are they the favourites? Do you look at Sydney again? For me, I think Melbourne have got a good chance this year.
They're always a strong team. I've seen Melbourne play, obviously, when they've come over to Headingley. And when they've been in England the other times as well.
I think the boost of having Smith today is a massive thing for the Storm, and the control they're going to have around the middle of the park is going to be exceptional.
Because they've started later, though, I mean, you've got to give it a few weeks, haven't you, see where teams are at.
Oh, yeah, always.
It could have been a one-off.
Sydney are obviously going to be there again. Like, they've got too much quality on the pitch, as they proved when they played Wigan. They were just too good in so many areas, and they didn't even have all the team. That's how good they are. But they have to start against South Sydney, which is obviously the big rivalry over in Australia. And South Sydney obviously boosted by the fact that Sam Burgess has signed obviously the long-term contract. He'll be there till the end of his career, basically. They're not going to just roll over and allow Roosters to get whatever they want. So they're going to turn up and they're going to be really, really fierce in that opening encounter.
Oh yeah, just because South Sydney have struggled a bit more recently, doesn't mean they're a bad team by any means, and they could easily turn over the Roosters, the champions, which would be a great way to start the season, I think, wouldn't it, against your rivals?
It wouldn't be bad at all, especially given that they are premiers. My Australian team that I follow is Parramatta, which is unfortunate for me. I'm just hoping that goes a little bit better this year. They've got Penrith first up, and that is on the Sunday morning. But I think the game that everybody's looking forward to on the Sunday morning, everybody in this side of the world anyway, is the Canberra Raiders game, which is, funnily enough, been chosen by Sky as one of the three that gets televised.
Who would have predicted that?
I never would have guessed. And the squads have been released, and all four of their Englishmen will start. Will play. Sorry, Ryan Sutton's obviously on the bench, but the other three will start.
Yeah, it's good. I never want to see players go over to the NRL. You want your superstars to stay in Super League because we want it to be the premier competition. But when they do get the chance to go over, I'm not surprised that players take it, because at the moment it is the stronger competition, and hopefully what the English boys will learn over there whilst they're there, they can bring back into the English national team and help us then beat the teammates.
It's interesting that a player like Ryan Sutton has gone over, and obviously wasn't in England contention when it went over, but within 3 months of being in Australia has managed to push his way into a first grade team and get a debut in round one, which is very impressive.
The English pack is one thing we can be very proud of. The English pack is a very strong pack, is a very big pack. So I don't think it's any disservice to Ryan Sutton that he's not been included in the England squad before, because there's a lot of players ahead of him, for me at least. But when you are playing in the NRL, you probably are more likely to get picked because you are playing in the stronger competition.
We'll obviously see how it goes for him. But I mean, if he's performing week in, week out for Canberra Raiders, then you can't look away from him, can you? Especially at age 23.
Especially because he'll be used to playing against the Australians and the Kiwis. He knows he'll know them better than
I think English boys. It's a good achievement for him to be over there 3 months and already get a debut. Is a massive thing.
Oh yeah, brilliant. I mean, you want, when the English boys do go over, you want them to obviously kick on and show what they're capable of, and show that Super League's got this talent. And it's not just an Australian-dominated sport.
And obviously with James Graham coming to the end of his international career, and some of the Burgess boys maybe not performing the way they were 4 or 5 years ago, it is time for people like Sutton to be pushing forward and knocking on Bennett's door and saying, "Yeah, well, look at me, look at what I'm doing." Maybe it's
credit to how much talent there is actually in the English game.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't see why we can't win a World Cup.
Oh,
I don't see why we can't.
Okay, well, let's move on quickly. No, but as for the lads that asked that, and Josh Hodgson and Elliot Whitehead have obviously been stonewalls in that team for a couple of years now, and obviously been stonewalls in the England team for a couple of years now, and they'll be expecting to continue that form. But John Bateman's starting at lock, which is obviously not somewhere he started at Wigan. He was obviously the back row at Wigan, but he's starting at 13. Maybe a bit different. Maybe he sees more of the ball at 13, and he gets involved in more defensive players at 13, and maybe that suits his game a little bit better.
It's a different style of play, isn't it? I remember when Adrian Morley went over, he was the best second row in Super League, and then he went over to the NRL, and he was the best prop in the NRL. It's different style of play suits different players. So, and John Bateman's played all over the pitch throughout his career, so I don't imagine he'll struggle.
I can't imagine he'll struggle. I think it'll be a really interesting game. I think with a 7:10 kickoff UK time, I think it'd be strange, but there'll be a lot of people getting up to see how those four lads get on Sunday morning, and I'll be one of them because I'm really interested in how these lads can go, and I really, really hope that they go well. Both as obviously with Bateman and Sutton as a Wigan fan, and then as an England fan, you want to see that your best products performing at the top level. Right, we'll move on to a little chat. I think you'll enjoy this one. If you've not already, please go over to Serious About Rugby League website, and there's lots of articles that talk about various different things. But there's something that we have been talking about, not so much on the website, but as fans for a number of weeks now, ever since Wigan got deducted 2 points, really, and obviously they got those 2 points back now. But they were lost because of a salary cap infringement. Is the salary cap fit for purpose?
I think it's no. I mean, if you're saying that the salary cap is there to make the league more competitive, this year you could say, oh well, the league is competitive, but there's only a handful of teams that actually spend the salary cap anyway. The salary cap makes sense if everybody's spending it, and then it is a level playing field.
I think you need to argue it's the Super League is more competitive, and probably at this stage at least more competitive than it's ever been before. But why is that? Who's competitive this year that wasn't competitive last year?
It's true as well, and we just look historically since Super League started. I think 4 separate teams have won the title, and
one of them's now into the Championship.
Yeah, one of them's not even in contention anymore. So whilst we've had Hull and Castleford and Warrington get to the grand finals,
the last 4 years it's been Wigan and Leeds.
Yeah, and before that it was Wigan and St Helens, and Wigan and
then St Helens and Leeds.
Yeah, and St Helens and Leeds,
and then Bradford with for a bit in the middle. So like, where's the consistency? Where is this competition? And I'll be honest, I'll throw it out there for myself, if nobody else will. Obviously, Castleford have always been close but never won it. Hull have been close but never won it. Warrington have been close but never won it. And they're obviously all still close as well. But there's teams coming into it like Salford. But why are Salford competitive this year? Well, I would argue it's because they've got Jackson Hastings, who is a marquee signing, who doesn't count towards a salary cap. So why is the salary cap there if you're able to buy players that aren't on the salary cap, but then they're the reason that you're competitive? If the salary cap served to make teams competitive, then why is it that the teams that are competing are the ones that have players that aren't on the salary cap that are performing the best in the league?
And why are the bottom three the teams that are spending the salary cap, whereas the middle of the pack, the ones that are challenging? Not all the teams. London are not going to spend anywhere near the cap.
Yeah. It sounds harsh on teams like London because obviously they don't have the facilities to get players in, and we obviously talk about like great academies. So like Wigan, who obviously won the youth academy championship for the last 6 or 7 years, they're always going to be okay in competing because they've got the products coming through. London don't have that luxury, nor do London have the money. But teams gonna like benefit from just keeping London around? Personally, I don't think so. I think there's teams in the Championship that would be willing to spend that money and make it a more competitive league. And if you want to become the Premier Division like you keep talking about, then spend money.
Yeah, and the problem is teams aren't allowed to spend money. If let's say you're a wealthy business owner and you want to come in, you want to buy a Super League team, there's absolutely no reason for you to do it at the moment because you can't buy your way to success like a lot of businessmen would. They'd have to come in and they'd have to spend 10, 20 years building up a team, which might be the best way to do it for the team in the long run. But actually, when we want to produce the best quality competition we can in a short space of time, we don't have 20 years to build the sport. Attendances have gone up slightly this year compared to last year. But if you want to compete with football, you've got to be able to spend the money. And for owners to want to spend the money, they've got to, not have the restrictions. And especially when we're getting rid of stuff like restrictions on certain players. So like if you've come from rugby union, there's no restriction now. If you're going to keep doing that anyway, what's the point?
I know what you mean. And it'd be interesting to hear your guys' points of view. I think that is a very, very fan-topical situation going on between obviously the league and the clubs. Please do get in touch. I want to hear what you guys think. I think we'll touch on this again in a later podcast, so please do let us know all your thoughts and opinions on the salary cap and on this week's fixtures, who will win and who will be competing come the end of the year, both in the Super League Championship and now in the NRL. But thank you once again for listening. Hopefully this you've enjoyed yourself as much as Connor has as he sits with his head down. I think one had too many beers last night. But again, thank you for listening, and hope you can tune in next week. See you soon.